Hi guys, I want to talk about something really interesting today. I started looking at this actually about a year and a half ago, and it relates to personal financial budgeting. So let's get into it. Okay, so what I wanted to cover was personal financial budgeting and how people keep an eye on their own personal financial affairs. And there's a really interesting question when I was looking at this about a year and a half ago that I finally realised that we should ask ourselves and ask our clients. And that is, if I asked you in 10 seconds to figure out what your total net personal wealth was, so one single figure, it might be $1 million, it might be whatever. If I asked you, give yourself 10 seconds as a quick test, what do you think your total net personal wealth is? And I think most of us, and I must admit, even a year and a half ago, it wasn't clear off the top of my head at all, because there are a lot of things in that equation. Often people have their home, they've got superannuation, they've got loans, they've got other assets, investments, what have you, cars potentially, but really any significant assets. Very few people have a clear idea in their head what their total net personal wealth is at any point in time, and importantly, how they're progressing with it. So, and I will say I was guilty of that myself in terms of the accuracy that I had over that. So that's why I found it so interesting as a professional accountant, having been doing this for many, many years. I think if I was a little bit shocked, then I think many other people out there would be even further off the mark. So it led me to looking at a few of the tools that were out there, and fortunately there are some great tools. One that I settled on was a platform called Money Brilliant. They have a free trial, which is pretty feature rich actually. It allows you to set up your bank feeds, your credit card feeds, your loan feeds, your frequent flyer feeds. It's got a huge amount of data that just feeds in, and there's an actual free version, which is fantastic. If you want to pay $100 a year, which is pretty cheap for what it gives you, you get their pro version or plus version, which is what after I tested it, what I chose to do. And so I've got all the loans, the super, bank feeds, everything gets updated daily, frequent flyer points, and it gives you a real snapshot each day of where it's at. As it feeds the data in each day, it categorises them based on machine learning and artificial intelligence, and you can certainly set filters, and whatever you set previously, it'll follow that and allocate it to certain categories, might be school fees, whatever it happens to be, and it gives you a snapshot of where your income and expenses are. You can filter it by whatever dates, you can drill down to certain credit cards. It's hugely flexible in its report. But what it does give you, and it also gives you the ability to add other assets that might not be feeding in. So if you've got a car, for example, you can add, I've got a 50 grand car and put it in there, whatever it is. Then it gives you a single figure and it tracks it each month, which is your total net personal wealth. And I've found it really interesting to track that over 12 months. I thought I'll give this a real go. I gave it 12 months and I was thorough in using the features, and I monitored it each month, and it was really interesting. But the other big insight that I got was how far off I was on total household expenditure. And I think what I learnt was that there's a whole bunch of small things we spend money on every day. Not so much just your coffee and what have you that's sort of more visible, but things like that are small, 10, $20 here and there. Throw into the mix if you've got a spouse or partner who's doing the same thing, and you're obviously not always communicating on all transactions and that sort of thing, because there's just a million of them in a typical household. And so you've got miscommunication going on there. Throw that into the mix, and you've got a situation where you've got all of these expenses coming out, going everywhere, and there's no real oversight generally at a personal level. A lot of people have their businesses and they've got accounting platforms like Xero, and they're monitoring those figures. But surprisingly, and we do that, but surprisingly very few people actually then go the next step down and look at their own personal finances and see how it's going and see how they're progressing. So I found, and even as a professional accountant, that my guesstimation on what we were spending was around 15% out versus what the actual came out at. So I think if I was 15% out, I suspect some others are probably even further out. Now, if you're sitting at 20% out on your sort of what you're expecting you're spending each year, it can amount in the typical household to an awful lot of money. So we're talking potentially, tens of thousands of dollars that just because you're not really supervising it. And if you have that information, if you realise you're spending money in some areas that are a bit questionable, at least it equips you to sit down and go, hang on, we probably don't need to do that. We really don't need. It's personal choice, of course, but you all of a sudden see your total bill for your Stan, your Netflix, your Foxtel, and you're looking at that going, wow, we're spending $2,000 a year on subscription TV or whatever it happens to be. At least then you can sit back and say, gee, that is a lot of money. But when you're only looking at $10 a month or whatever, it doesn't really have the same impact. So the systems work really well. I can vouch for Money Brilliant, but there are others. The outcome is really important. Tracking your net personal wealth and monitoring your expenditure, I think really helps you make some good decisions. So I really encourage you to consider managing your personal finance. Obviously, once you've got a handle on it, it helps you achieve short, medium and long-term goals. It'll help you be able to plan for holidays. It'll help you be able to plan for whatever it is that you have coming up, buy a new car in a few years, whatever you want. Certainly helps for retirement planning, and it's actually got some retirement planning calculators built into Money Brilliant. So you can punch in how much you're putting into super or your wage, and it'll tell you at what age you want to retire at 65, how much you're going to have in super. And it does obviously all sorts of business mathematics, putting in earnings and inflation and what have you, and it'll give you a really good snapshot on where you're heading. It might be some interesting surprises for a lot of people as well. So fantastic platform. Really encourage people to have a look at their personal budgeting and measure your net personal wealth from, if it's not month to month, from quarter to quarter, and certainly every year, because you want to see that your wealth is increasing from year to year so that you can really track your progress. So hopefully that's been helpful. I can vouch for it because I've done it. If you've got any questions, by all means, shout out to us. Otherwise, we'll see you next time.